Hey folks, Bernakevitch here with All Points Design. That's allpointsdesign.ca. Today we're talking about the Oregon State University permaculture template. Specifically, we're taking a look at the cross-section assignment. Now, cross sections are exceptionally valuable in understanding and decoding a landscape, especially for those of us that don't work in landscape design or architecture. It's a way for us to further understand the elevation and heights of different elements on a site, and to take and bisect the site with a line and say, this is the line we're going to take across a landscape, and we're going to, just like a cake, we're going to cut through and we're going to get a sense of everything that's on that line. So I know that there's a poplar tree here on this line. I know that this goes through the deck in the backyard. So there's the deck there. I know that this goes through the house. So we've got the house here. It just skirts by the balcony as well. So we have the house and we've got the balcony, hits that mungo pine that we've been talking about a bunch, hits the slope on that front yard because the slope goes this way, hits the hedge that's running along here, hits the sidewalk, hits the gutter, and then goes right to the crown of the road, because again, roads, they crown, right? So it comes right to the center of that. And then in the back, we've got the fence here, and then we've got the alley. So we've got alley, we have fence. So taking that cross section gives us a sense of the site and elements within the site. Now, you may think, well, how can I choose? How do I know what to do on a site, and how would I specifically take a cross section? How would I choose? So one of the ways to do this is to start to get a sense of the heights of everything on the site. Now, if you have a contour map, you're half done, because you'll take a look at the contour lines and see where the elevation changes are. But if you're in an urban environment, or you're working on elements in the property that are buildings or existing vegetation, you have to start to decode the landscape. So what I like to do, especially in urban sites, is I like to take red as the height, the tallest thing. And so we've got this poplar tree here, that's kind of the height. We have a conifer here, we have a conifer here, and those are really the tallest things in the landscape. Below that, we kind of have a mid-height. We've got our crabapple tree in the back. There's another tree here in the back. There's, of course, the house itself. There's the garage. And this poplar in the front here, this one no longer is there, so I don't have to worry about that. So that's, that's basically mid-height. The lilac, actually, now that I'm looking at this, and the mungo pine in the front. It's about that height. Also, the hedge here is actually quite high now that we're looking at it. And the back can get high back here, but it's currently not that high. So we're going to give that our yellow. So this is our yellow. Of course, the fence is that height, sort of that same height there. In the front here, we've got at that height, we've got this, lower hedge here. Actually, we'll leave that as the next layer. We don't need that to be there, but we do, of course, have our balcony that's a little bit lower than the mungo pine. Yeah, all that. I'm going to go back to red because I just remember that I've got my light post over here. So that's up nice and high. And then finally at the bottom, right at the bottom here, we have everything sort of on ground level. So we've got our sidewalk that's here. We've got our front sidewalk, our hedge, hedge that goes all the way along there. Of course, we've got our deck and then our back. Yeah, and we've also got a shed back there, I just remembered. So there's also a shed that's lower than the garage, but it is there to be sure. So as we're taking a look at this, we're getting a sense of the heights of everything. Now, we also want to know where water flows. We want to know what the topography of the landscape is. So if you don't have a contour map, like I don't have on this site, what I can do is I can just work with little arrows that show me the flow. And so basically this property, like most corner lots, has relatively flat. And then when we get to the edges, it's quite steep. So it's, a foot or two over, maybe a foot or two. So it's got a pretty steep 45 slope there. And then, we've got a low, slow slope there. So all of this is just to get a sense of the heights and the differences of what we're looking at here. And then from there, I want to get a sense of, well, what are the elements that I'm working on for this site? So what I'll do is I'll then remove that layer. And I made a little mistake, only in that I put this on my base layer, which is fine. So I'm just going to erase this because I have it on another layer to show you. But after we do this, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the areas of production? Where are the areas of focus that we already know through the client interview and through our own conversations and walking the land that we know are going to be places where we're going to want to have some information, or places where we're going to have plants or different elements that are going to be there, maybe new buildings, chicken coops, greenhouses, things of that nature. We want to get a sense of that. So I've already gone ahead and done this. So we're going to come up here to the top, and we get a sense of these different areas. So we know that in the front, we've got this front lawn. And so this front lawn is potentially an area that we're going to be looking at in a little bit more detail. It's got a lot of sun, it's got access, it's got positive views and negative views. We've got a negative view that comes out this way, but we also have a positive view of the pine. So a couple of elements there. This side yard is not necessarily a huge focus. This backyard, we're potentially taking the fall from our roof, we're putting it in the gutter. The gutter comes over here right now with a downspout and then exits out here. So we're thinking about putting in a bed outside the fence that can grow up a couple of vines, potentially some hardy grapes, and actually come into the backyard. So that's an interesting spot. And then we have this backyard area that the clients have constantly talked about and said they want to have a garden oasis, urban oasis. So that gives me a good sense that there's some major areas I want to work with here. So from this, we know, well, we definitely want to at least get the whole property. So that'll be an A to B. We'll want to get a sense of that full scope. We know we want to get the front yard, and we've got this area at least, but we don't have this area. So having a cross section that goes from there to there would be useful. And in the back, we have this sort of weird area here. So we're going to take a line that probably runs something like this, probably ends a little shorter, probably ends towards the house, because we don't need the whole house in there. So that's probably going to go to the sidewalk. So we're going to have an A there and a B there. A to B is basically the cross section where it starts and stops. So this can be a way for us to get a sense of the different areas that we want to create cross sections. Now in this assignment, you only have to make one cross section. You don't have to make more than that. But again, it is one of the most useful ways to start to decode a landscape. So once we get those different areas, we have three major cross sections. And again, we're using what are the heights of everything on the landscape? Where might we be harvesting rainwater? This is true for urban or rural sites. Where might there be enough elevation gain or loss where we'll want to get a sense of where things will be? And then finally, if we're doing due diligence and we're starting to take a look at, let's say, a slope like this, and we're going to be putting in trees, we may want to know what the heights of those trees are. So that way we work with our solar angles and we can make sure that they don't outshade or shade each other. So that might be another consideration. Folks, thanks for joining me on this one. In the next assignment, or pardon me, in the next tutorial, we'll take a look at how specifically to work with a cross section and how to take information from the map and put it into a real life cross section. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe or put a comment down below, and we'll see you next time.